So first of all, thanks Maria Rosa for your introductory comments and in the beginning of this very timely event after yesterday's very important vote, which took place in the Internal Market Committee after months of hard negotiations, both at technical and political level. 1,038 amendments, 119 of these amendments came also from 4 of the legal committees, the Legal Committee, Build Committee, Tram Committee, and EDRi Committee, who had also the right to submit their amendments and an opinion for this report, and 56 pages of compromise amendments. We had a strong majority both at the compromise vote and also at the final vote, which took place later on in the afternoon, whereby we had around 86% of majority vote from all IMCO MEPs. So this is a very good sign. It's a good sign for it's a good sign for a progressive report on the Digital Services Act. Basically, today we are living in a world where digital services and platforms are essential. They are essential both for our economic, they are essential also for our commercial, economic, and also for our social life. Just imagine the consequences, the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, the restrictions that we still have in a number of member states without having recourse to digital tools, without having digital services giving us the possibility to buy our products online or continue to do our business, continue to do our work as we are doing today by using digital means. During this crisis, they helped us to facilitate social and economic commercial exchanges of goods, services, information, which would otherwise have not happened. Online platforms and digital services have largely evolved during the past 20 years, and they have become the new utilities of our times, and their importance will only continue to grow in the future. The current framework of rules therefore needs to catch up with the new realities that we are facing today, and also the need to ensure that public interests, that fundamental rights, that users and consumers' rights are protected in the new digital realities that we are living. When the e-commerce directive was adopted 20 years ago, platforms such as Google, such as Amazon, such as Booking.com were only at their very infancy. Many did not even exist. For example, Facebook, Shopify, Etsy, Airbnb, Wish, AliExpress were all launched after 2004. Therefore, it is imperative to recognize that a holistic and common approach is to be applied in the Digital Services Act. One built on trust, built on choice, and also a high level of protection integrating users, consumers, and also SMEs concerns. The focus and specific scope of the IMCO report is basically divided into 2 parts. First of all, the revision of the e-commerce directive, that there are elements which we believe are still relevant today, but there are other elements which need upgrading, and we are moving a set of proposals in that direction. And the second part of our proposal deals with the internal market instrument for ex-ante regulation of systemic operators. We made it also very clear in our report that our proposal is not touching sectorial legislation. Sectorial legislation such as copyright, such as AVMSD. Therefore, this proposal is without prejudice to this sectorial legislation. It is, as I said, imperative to recognize that a new holistic and common approach is to be applied. And in the report, we are focusing on some of the fundamental issues and provisions that the DSA should basically cater for. And one of the biggest, I must say, one of the biggest and most ambitious parts of our proposal is that of giving an extraterritorial effect also to our proposals, our DSA proposals, whereby we are saying that the DSA should not only apply to EU companies or EU operators, but it should also be applicable and it should be given an extraterritorial dimension so that it is applicable to non-EU companies that basically are targeting our European market, our European consumers, are targeting European citizens. Something on the lines of the GDPR. And why is this important? It's important, for example, with a recent case study that we had, where Facebook has recently warned that it may pull the plug out of Europe if Ireland enforces a ban on sharing of data. Today we are living in a world with no borders, no boundaries, and no rules for these digital companies. That is why the DSA should basically ensure that companies established outside of the EU that are targeting our market, our citizens, our consumers, must abide by European rules. And this is a central aspect of our report. Another central issue in my report is that of protecting people and European companies from harmful business models, manipulation, and also discriminatory practices. Such models are designed to maximize the amount of user attention dedicated to the platforms based on clicks, traffic, which quickly amplify sensationalist content, illegal content, such as hate speech, such as misinformation. Therefore, in our report, we are also trying to tackle harmful business models that exist in our ecosystem. How are we addressing this in my report? We are doing this through a number of very ambitious measures and actions to regulate and fix these business models, which are at the core of a lot of online harms that we are facing. For example, for the first time, we are introducing the Know Your Business Customer provisions, which basically will require platforms to check and also stop fraudulent companies using their services to sell their illegal, their unsafe products, or basically distribute harmful content to users and consumers in the EU. Such measures will help address, on one part, the problem also of disinformation, misleading or illegal content, and also the sale of unsafe and fake products throughout the EU. Another way to address harmful practices in my report is through stricter provisions, also targeting another central aspect in our discussion when we are dealing with business models, targeting basically harmful advertising practices, digital nudging, micro-targeting, recommended systems for advertisement, and also preferential treatment. And here we have introduced several obligations, such as the obligation to disclose information of the advertiser's identity, basically also putting more importance on another fundamental aspect, which is reflected throughout our report, more transparency online, opt-in for use of behavioral data and political advertising, and also opt-out for micro-targeting tracking. Manipulation practices of targeting people because of their age, because of their gender, because of their religion, sexual orientation, because of the color of their skin, or just because they have been identified by AI algorithms as being insecure, being vulnerable, being worthless. This must stop. And big companies such as Facebook and YouTube have been more than once under fire for using such practices. To this end, we are proposing that consumers are always informed if AI enables their services, and that there is an oversight and risk assessment of algorithms by competent authorities, and that they are at least accountable and used by a fairness criteria, so that such systems are used in a non-discriminatory manner and in a transparent manner. Because if this is not done, the most vulnerable users in our societies will be the worst affected. Another essential element in my report is targeted measures to online marketplaces. And here we are basically dedicating a whole chapter in our report for tackling these issues which revolve around online marketplaces. And we are doing so because one of the sectors which needs special attention when it comes to harmful business models is online marketplaces. And here we are saying, and we are basically implementing a fundamental pillar of our report, that of creating a level playing field and also of enforcing a fundamental principle. That principle stating that what is considered to be illegal offline should also be considered to be illegal online. And this is of utmost importance and the guiding principle for this chapter on online marketplaces. And we believe that consumers should be equally safe when shopping online as they are safe when they are shopping in stores. The report tackles issues such as the sale and distribution of illegal and unsafe products that basically do not comply with EU rules on product safety and do not sufficiently guarantee consumer rights. And with these provisions, we are also creating a level playing field between producers, distributors, sellers from third countries, and also sellers, producers within the EU, that they have to comply with technical harmonization at EU level, health and safety, technical harmonization, which basically is putting them at a competitive disadvantage when sellers from third countries are targeting directly EU consumers, and they basically do not have to comply with all this technical harmonization, which is so important for consumer protection. Therefore, we are, on the one hand, increasing consumer protection by requiring third country sellers to abide with our rules, and at the same time, we are creating a level playing field when it comes to competition, because now third country sellers have to abide by our rules, and therefore our companies, our SMEs, our producers are not put at a competitive disadvantage. The COVID-19 crisis has upended the global also consumer landscape, moving consumers further online, changing their demands, exacerbating their behavioral biases. Unfair, misleading, and fraudulent commercial practices online are not a new phenomenon. We have been facing these issues for a number of years, but they have exploded during the crisis that we are facing and are much more visible right now. These include financial scams, false claims, for example, that there are products online which can prevent you from contracting COVID-19, or that can prevent you, or that they can cure basically the virus, promotion of unsafe and counterfeited products. And we believe that online marketplaces should become responsible actors, responsible players towards consumers for such practices. On another level, the report also deals with fundamental parts of the e-commerce directive, dealing with the liability regime. Basically, we are preserving the safe harbor provisions under Article 12 to 14. But we are also tackling other aspects, for example, tackling illegal content problems online. And here, I believe that we had consensus during our discussions, which took place with a number of actors, a number of players intermediating at different levels during the past months, and there was consensus that we need more certainty for a harmonized notice and action procedure. And we are basically proposing a very ambitious, harmonized, legally enforceable notice and action mechanism with detailed recommendations, precise rights on obligations, and basically a step-by-step procedure. We are also proposing a specific out-of-court dispute settlement mechanisms, also with strict annual transparency reports, because we believe again that we need to upend transparency when it comes to content that it is being taken down by platforms. These reports again, are essential to improve transparency. We are also, as I said, protecting the safe harbor provisions, and also we are protecting the ban on general monitoring in the e-commerce directive under Article 15. But at the same time, we are calling for more clarification, in accordance with the ECJ's jurisprudence when it comes to more clarity on the active and passive status that basically are so important for the functioning of the exemptions under Article 12 to Article 14. Last part, and I'm going to conclude, is that dealing with the last part of our report of ex-ante rules, basically which are aimed to tackle the big digital players' uncompetitive practices. There are a few very large online platforms which account for a substantial share of the EU's digital economy, which are acting as gatekeepers between businesses, between consumers, with basically economic power and control over the entire platform ecosystem. And their role makes it practically impossible for rivals or new market entrants to compete. Therefore, in our report, first of all, we are identifying and defining by the use of a number of economic indicators to define who these systemic operators are. And we are also setting clear measures to regulate such systemic operators to ensure that our markets and the markets impacted by them remain fair, contestable, and competitive. And we are moving forward measures to ensure that they do not engage in unfair practices such as lack of interoperability, no visibility, transparency on self-preferencing, for example, data envelopment, vertical integration, and also recommendation systems. Basically, these are the main elements dealing with our report. I tried to highlight the most important, most salient measures that were agreed yesterday by the IMCO committee. Thanks again.